Welcome to the ADSW Series. I'm Caroline Daniel. I'm a partner at Brunswick Group and a former Financial Times journalist. Delighted to be here today. Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, led by the UAE and Masdar, is a global platform accelerating sustainable development. The ADSW Series brings together experts like the two we have here today and thought leaders virtually to share insights on the key issues shaping the global sustainability agenda. With climate change demanding immediate action, industries around the world are exploring pathways to net zero emissions. Today's episode, Decarbonizing Industries, Can AI Lead the Way?, focuses on the transformational power of AI to drive change in all sorts of ways. We're hearing it every single day of our lives, how AI is impacting us, and the energy systems are no different. So from how we optimize energy use, to how we reduce greenhouse gases, to indeed how far AI is also a problem and challenge in itself in demanding more energy consumption. For any ChatGPT search is 10 times more energy consuming than a typical Google search. So these are really big challenges, great opportunities for the world too. So data centers are becoming suddenly politicized and important elements of the global debate. Recently, I was with ADNOC in Abu Dhabi, and they were hosting a very interesting conversation about the future of AI and AI for energy. So I think that sort of helps to set the stage for why this is a critical moment in the sector. So we're here to explore AI and how it can achieve a low carbon economy and how we can overcome the challenges ahead. With that, I'd like to introduce my two speakers. So first, starting with you, Dr. Cooper.
Hi everyone and welcome. Very much appreciate the opportunity here, and I hope that everyone listening actually appreciates and understands and gets some great value out of the dialogue we're going to have here. It's going to be very interactive, I'm sure. My background, 30 odd years in the technology field, started off in telecommunications, more recently, like everyone, moving into AI, though AI has been around longer than I have. With that said, I'm currently an executive advisor for ADNOC here in the UAE.
Great, thanks very much, Dr. Cooper. And Sarfaraz Ahmed, perhaps you can introduce yourself too.
Thank you, Caroline. Thanks for having me on this forum. I'm Sarfaraz Ahmed, the CIO of ENGIE. ENGIE for the region AMEA, which is Asia, Middle East, and Africa. As you might already know, ENGIE is a global player in the energy sector with operations spanning around the globe. ENGIE has an ambition of decarbonization to achieve net zero carbon by 2045 across its whole value chain. And on this journey of achieving net zero by 2045, digitalization and AI is an integral part of ENGIE's strategy. We are using it for enhancing energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Great. Well, welcome both of you. I think we're going to start with exactly that point you just brought up, Sarfaraz, which is how do we harness AI for actually reducing emissions in the world? And I'd love to just hear a bit more detail about what ENGIE is doing, some great examples and anecdotes about the kind of impact it's already making in your company.
Right. So, I mean, as I said, ENGIE's ambition is to basically increase the footprint of renewable energy, and we are currently at 35 gigawatts of capacity, and the ambition is to move up to 80 gigawatts of renewable capacity, generation capacity by 2030. You can imagine that increasing this renewable capacity means a lot of efforts to be done across the whole value chain, across the whole organization. We are using AI across all of these portfolio of our technologies. AI is used mostly for demand management, for forecasting accuracy on the forecast of production, increasing the lifetime of our assets by performing the maintenance on time and at the right frequency. Recent example is the Smart Institutions project we did in North America, where ENGIE is providing the energy optimization and energy conservation services to large campuses, educational institutions in North America. We are replicating this model in our other businesses where we are using similar AI algorithms for optimizing the consumption of energy.
That's really interesting. So, in terms of the impact you're saying, which has perhaps been most surprising to you, what would you point to in terms of these and how it's also changing some of the culture of the company in terms of how you're thinking in an AI first way?
Yeah, thank you for that good question. AI, we are on the journey of AI. I mean, I think no company in the world can say that they have achieved the maturity level which is expected. So we are on the start of that journey. One of the important things which we have realized is the adoption of this technology within the organization, meaning the changing the culture and mindset of the people about this technology. I will give you just a very simple example. We did a AI hackathon with the help of AWS in Dubai just recently, and we asked our business teams to give us ideas. I can say that out of which 60% of the ideas were considered as AI, but they are not really AI. Some of the ideas were generative AI, but they are not basically AI. So it emphasizes the importance of increasing the awareness within the organization about what is AI and what it can do for our business.
Great, thank you. And Chris, I'm going to come to you on that. The same question about how you're thinking about harnessing AI for issues like emissions reduction and improving the lower carbon opportunity.
Sure, thank you. It's not how are we, it's where are we? And in fact, I think we need to take a step back here. Let's remember, in terms of reducing emissions, the only way to do that and approach near zero is first of all to be able to monitor, manage. So that's the first thing we're doing here. We're very much focused on how do you measure and track and understand where those emissions are coming from in order that you can then take the right actions to reduce those emissions. So one of the tools we've been developing and deploying across our operating companies in ADNOC is a tool called Emission X. Now that's focused very much on CO2 emissions. And what that does, it actually provides predictive analytics for up to 2 years in advance of the emissions profiling of a piece of infrastructure. So what it allows you to do, it allows you to build a digital twin so you can do predictive analytics, predictive maintenance of pieces of infrastructure so you can determine how you manage the emissions profiling. And again, if we also think about other types of emissions like methane, then again it comes back to how do you measure and monitor it. And one of the biggest challenges certainly in the energy industry, let's take an example like flaring. No one likes to talk about flaring, but it's a fact. Why is flaring happening? In many cases it's happening because the infrastructure that's being utilized is going outside of the limits that it should be operating within, and that's why you flare. So by actually providing digital twins and predictive analytics and predictive maintenance of those pieces of infrastructure allows you potentially to prevent the need for any kind of flaring. So I think it's important to understand that we need to make sure that we've got the right tools out there, the right sensors, so we can actually do the analysis to understand where the emissions are coming from in order we can then take preventative measures to actually reduce and eradicate.
And just to build on that, I think in a recent report it showed that there's an Oxford University had also come up with a way of tracking methane emissions, and it was 20% more efficient than current models. So directionally, it does feel like, if we had to sort of have an ambition target based on the kind of technologies you're seeing and some of the interventions from different innovations, how soon do we think we'll get before we can actually be able to sort of map and monitor all the methane emissions?
It's improving all the time. Okay, it's no secret. You can look out there on the internet. There were 2 non-for-profit organization satellites that were put up in this recent year, and what they're doing is they're going around the globe and actually monitoring and tracking all of the methane emissions happening everywhere and then reporting that back. So there's no hiding place. At the end of the day, it's important we embrace, we understand this is happening. And again, in order for us to decarbonize it, it's important we understand where they're coming from. So leveraging satellite imagery and thermal cameras are very important in order that we can actually track where those methane emissions are coming from.
So it's interesting, in the recent report which came out from both Masdar, ADNOC and joint report from Microsoft, it did identify AI for energy and as a really critical area, but also noted that something like 80% of those who they'd interviewed, 400 key stakeholders, all thought that AI would help contribute to sustainability of the sector. So, which is positive, but also pointed out that a lot of existing energy companies, perhaps traditional energy companies, weren't embracing it as fast as they should be compared with some of the newer energy companies. Welcome your thoughts on that and how far you're seeing a difference perhaps in the sector around AI adoption and who some of the leaders are, and where you're seeing that. So perhaps back to you, Chris, on that.
Sure, great question. Thanks very much. Nothing like being on the spot here. So look, we as ADNOC, we've taken a leap of faith, I'll call it. But again, we've just been forward thinking, and it's thanks to the forward thinking leadership of the UAE that we've taken this approach. And what we've done is we've dealt with the elephant in the room. Okay, is AI going to take my job? And what we've done since the beginning of the year, we have educated 2/3 of the populace. Okay, so 2/3 of the ADNOC staff, 31,000 people. So they have been provided with a basic level of education and understanding what is AI all about, where can it be applied, why is it important. And I can tell you, all of the senior executives have actually been through 3 days of deep level education. Now you might think, why? Because again, it's really important that we change the mindset. Remember, AI is a journey, it's an enabler, and it's here to make a positive impact, but it needs to be managed correctly. So really, it's important to get the right educations to bring the staff along with you, help them understand where they can benefit, understand why it's important to look for opportunities. And what we're now seeing, we're seeing it turn the other way. We're actually seeing our staff are coming to us with ideas of where they believe AI can actually help in providing a more sustainable future.
So Sarfaraz, is that something that you're seeing to ENGIE in terms of, I've heard this from other clients as well, that actually it's quite a long learning curve. It does take sort of, a good 2 to 3 years to actually get training in place and people to become more fluent in AI adoption. And actually when it takes off, then you're sort of overwhelmed by the number of potential proof of concepts, and then it just becomes a battle about which one is going to win and which one is actually economic. Perhaps take us in the room, Sarfaraz, about how you're managing the opportunities that you're seeing around deploying AI in your organization.
No, thank you very much. I think the the ideation of AI use cases is the easiest part of this whole journey. The biggest part is to get these ideas through a funnel, through a screening process with certain very stringent criteria. And for ENGIE, what we have done, we have formed a task force at the group level. The task force has certain objectives. One of the objectives is to make sure that these ideas are coming through the right channels. We are capturing all the ideas from the business. So we have done ideation workshops at different levels of the organization. So it's like a bottom-up approach to understand what are the real challenges in the business which can be solved by this technology, and then collecting an inventory of these ideas. One of the key, I would say, criteria for that is the scalability of these ideas. So for example, we don't want to generate these AI solutions in each entity or each country. So one of the criteria we are using is scalability. The other one is the carbon footprint impact of this idea. As I said, most of the time people have a misconception that every problem can be solved by Gen AI, which has an LLM sitting at the back. It's a big elephant which consumes a lot of energy and hence a lot of carbon footprint. So this is very important for us to make sure that what we are doing in the right direction. So we are not generating ideas and then developing Gen AI solutions for each of them. So we are very mindful of that thing. Again, data democratization of AI is very important. So as Chris has mentioned, in ENGIE also we have run a very comprehensive training program for all the levels of the organization. So there is a basic level of AI training, and then there is a role-based training for different levels of the organization. For example, managers are getting a different level of AI training on Gen AI and AI. This journey has just started, so we started it almost start of this year, and we are already started to see and reaping the benefit of this investment of our time in this training. So people are coming up with better ideas, and also we are closely monitoring the adoption and the utilization of our tools which are using in-house. So that is also helping us to steer our resources in the right direction.
It's really interesting that you pick up on the point about that balance between the opportunity in terms of how it can help reduce emissions. But obviously, everyone's very well aware of the impact on the climate of actually adopting more AI, and particularly if you scale AI, as everyone's expecting to, that has a significant impact on energy consumption. So it's a sort of a bit of a tension at the moment. As I say, the very interesting event that ADNOC had convened a few weeks ago in Abu Dhabi was a fascinating moment of bringing together, for the first time in some ways, big tech and big energy companies, because they are now they all have a shared challenge on how to resolve this as partners. And you would never have seen a few months ago, you would never have predicted that Microsoft and some of the big tech companies would be buying back 3 Mile Island and talking about nuclear capabilities. So this really is quite a different game that we're in around the energy transition, and with very different players who have a different incentive in the room. But there is a real challenge, isn't there, Chris? If you look at some of the data around energy consumption, I'll just give a few facts to get us going. If you look at the energy crunch coming in different markets, in places like Ireland, in places like in parts of Europe, there is expectations that by 2025 AI will be adopting something like 25% of the electricity, and that's soon. I mean, that's already sort of now. This isn't sort of just in the future. Similarly, in the US, there are markets which are increasingly, when there's a lot of localized data centers, you're starting to see tensions between the demands of the hyperscalers, like the big AI companies, and actually what does that mean for the average consumers. So there is now really a shared challenge from the big hyperscalers, who are adopting something like 70% of the energy demands are for those biggest companies. So how do we get the right balance between the fact that everyone should be embracing AI, it's important for economic growth and lots of other reasons, versus the fact that it is going to be consuming, in the short term at least, it's quite hard to solve the problems of the energy demands?
We really are talking about the new elephant in the room, aren't we? No, there's an interesting dichotomy here. And as you rightly say, there is this surge of increase of energy demand to substantiate and support these models that are being built in AI. But again, a lot of the forecasting today is based on technology today, and we need to understand that technology will continue to evolve. So whilst definitely there's an increase in energy requirement, we're seeing it everywhere. And you rightly say, there is this now challenge between the requirements of the data centers and those, of the population. But with that, there's hope and opportunity. As I said, technology is constantly evolving, and when you look at the new chipsets that will soon be released and coming out from some of the big players, they're operating at lower temperatures in many cases. So that means there'll be less energy requirements for the cooling of those data centers. That's a good point. If you look at what we're doing as ADNOC, we're actually focused on electrification. So again, on that AI for energy piece, we're very much focused on leveraging I'll call it the CO2 neutral, because we're actually leveraging a lot of nuclear as well as renewables from Masdar to support the electrification of our locations, both onshore and offshore. So that in turn is actually reducing the emissions. So in time, there'll be no longer requirements for the diesel generation. But there's a lot more that has to be done. We are literally, I can openly say this, and Caroline, as you rightly said from that session, we are scratching the surface. I think what I will say is, I said that in fact earlier this year here for ADNOC, but we're now getting deeper into that surface, but there's so much more that can and needs to be done. I think the other thing to take into account is there's the building of these large LLMs, which is generally done in the data centers. But then as we look at much more specific small language models, a lot of those can actually be done at the edge. So we'll build the models, maybe the large models in the data centers, and a lot of the inferencing will actually be carried out at the edge, which is much lower power. That's, again, good news. And again, as we roll out 5G connectivity and electrification of those locations, that ultimately means that we're delivering the promise of a lower carbon offering from the oil and gas business by leveraging those latest technologies. So there's a fantastic opportunity there as well.
And Sarfaraz, I want to come to you particularly on the sort of ENGIE's role with renewables and how you see this as a critical part of the solution for the energy consumption needed by AI.
Yeah, so as I said, we have an ambitious, very big target of achieving 80 gigawatts of capacity generation through the renewables, means solar and wind, which is a very target. only increasing the capacity of your generation in the solar or wind will not solve the problem. So we need to have, in order to achieve net zero carbon target, we are taking some other initiatives, for example, decommissioning or lowering our footprint on the flexible generation, thermal generation, and the fossil fuel plants. So it's an overall strategy. And one of the biggest piece of this jigsaw puzzle is the storage system. So energy storage comes into picture as a very vital element of this whole chain, because if we are increasing, because of the inherent nature of renewable sources, we cannot run electricity through solar, for example, throughout the day. So you have to have storage solutions. So there are advancements being done in the storage solutions, and we are mindful of that. So we are capturing that advancements. But what we are also doing is to enable to use AI to optimize these storage solutions and also the renewables. So for example, we have done corporate level contracts with global cloud providers for getting the weather forecast and weather data. Weather data is very important to make accurate forecasting for our renewable assets. So we have those corporate level partnerships with these providers. And secondly, we are working with the AI companies to design specific LLMs for the battery storage optimization. So there are algorithms, AI algorithms, which are very specific for the battery storage, and to maximize and optimize the consumption of and the production of renewable power.
What's your timescale for that?
So we have started our, I mean, on the optimization of renewable, that is already ongoing. So we have AI models which we are using in our landscape of renewables. What we have just started is our journey on battery storage. See, so the AI, so AI comes with the battery storage, but what we are doing next is to make sure that battery storage AI are linked to the renewables, so the demands and forecast are completely aligned with that to optimize the output. So that's something which we are doing. We are foreseeing the results of this whole project to be coming out in the next 1 or 2 years time.
I think it's going to be a really interesting part of the solution, isn't it? The role of energy software for managing grids and demand management with consumers, and the rise of electric vehicles requires a new generation of energy software as well. So in some ways, it's never been a more exciting time to be in the energy sector. And to your point, Chris, I think one thing we did hear, I think a few weeks ago, was that innovation has been a fact of history, particularly with data centers. I can't say I'm a data center historian, but actually there was an interesting data point about how from 2010 to 2020, and the global data use around the world rose by 900%, and yet the electricity demand on that usage rose only by 10%. So obviously we're in a different era now in terms of AI, but actually directionally that's a pretty extraordinary set of facts. And I think you're right, there are new innovations happening all the time. The shift from large language models to smaller ones is going to be a big change. The rise of very different levels of chips, which means that you can actually have data centers in very different locations around the world. And I just want to pick up on that about how far do we make sure that the benefits of AI are equally distributed in different countries and not just sort of available to one market. And obviously that's a key part of both of your roles, is making sure that you're developing the right solutions, not just in America and other places, but actually it's a global opportunity. Perhaps you can touch on that, Chris.
Let me just peel that back a sec. So one of the challenges is that for these data centers, it's about the power distribution requirement, and it needs to be localized. So it's very important that the data centers are built close to the power generation. In terms of connectivity, that's no longer such a challenge, because what's happening is you're actually carrying out the models at the location in the data center, and then you can just do the inferencing at the edge, for example. But it is very important that if there's an opportunity in some of the other countries outside of, let's say, the likes of the UAE, for example, if there's power generation available in parts of Africa and data centers can be built close to that power generation, that gives an immense opportunity for them to actually partake in that. Now, the one challenge we have to consider, though, is data sovereignty. I can tell you here as ADNOC, we're very proud and very protective of our data for very good reason. So that's something we also need to take into account, data sovereignty. And obviously when we look at cloud infrastructure, that can also cause some challenges and inhibitors depending on how it's managed. The other thing is, as we move from model-based AI to generative AI and you start to pull in external data, we also need to be very conscious of what could be accumulated with that data and making sure that that data is secure, sound, and it's not bringing any cyber risks. So the one challenge we have here, Caroline, is to consider power generation close to the data centers, but then data sovereignty, and also as you're looking at bringing in external data to make sure you're not bringing in any cyber risk. And these are things that are very real and very front of mind for all of us today in this sector.
And Sarfaraz, I welcome your thoughts on, as we sort of move to implement AI solutions at scale, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing, and which are or obstacles to that kind of growth?
Yeah, so ENGIE being a kind of a large organization which is spread over different geographies and legacy of many acquisitions in the past with heterogeneous systems, one of the biggest challenge, because AI, it depends on data and garbage in, garbage out. So for us, I think the biggest challenge has been to integrate different data sources which are coming from different regions, different units of our production. So that has been the biggest challenge. The other challenge is that we have I mean, and this is what I have just described, the awareness and democratization of our workforce, which we are working. I mean, as I said, from the last 1 year we have started working on this challenge, but it is getting much better now. We are focusing on educating our workforce, and that's ongoing. Something which I just wanted to complement what Chris said about the location of data centers, of the production units or energy production close to the data centers. ENGIE has power purchase agreements with a lot of large big tech players for providing the low carbon electricity to the data centers. I will not name, but they are all big players across the globe, and ENGIE has proudly in the position to provide green electricity to those data centers. So we are contributing to client decarbonization journey also, and as part of that, we target to reduce this CO2 equivalent of 45 million tons of CO2 by 2030. So that's the kind of a target we have set for ourselves when we talk about decarbonization of our clients, which are in different domains. I just mentioned about the tech industries, but we have clients in pharmaceuticals, for example, healthcare, and different parts of life.
Looking ahead, and it's pretty hard to look ahead in the AI world given how fast everything has changed in the last 2 years. What do you think is a game-changing development that you believe will define the next phase of AI-driven decarbonisation in the energy sector?
I think the way we see the things are moving, every energy company is moving towards renewables. So as I said, ENGIE has a target of 80 gigawatt by 2030. We see our competitors in the market, the players have similar targets. So as I said, the demand of storage will increase, and I see that there's a huge potential of AI to optimize the link between renewables and the storage solutions. So that's I see as the biggest game changer. It will impact positively on reduction of the energy requirements, as well as the increasing the efficiency of the renewable fleet and the battery storage. So I think AI has a lot to offer in this area moving forward.
Great. And Chris, I noticed on your biography, you're a theoretical physicist by training, and have a PhD in physics, electronics, and material science. So let's just think even more further ahead. Perhaps we'll have two answers from you, one from sort of ADNOC in terms of the near future, but also the longer term future when there's a lot of focus on nuclear and fission and fusion. with your old physics hat on, perhaps you can answer that, and then with your ADNOC hat on, it would be great to hear from you from both perspectives.
Sure, I'll perhaps even combine the two, if I may, and I don't want to bore everyone with this. And look, I mentioned it earlier on, a lot of it is a mindset shift that needs to happen. It's really important that we go through this education so everyone understands. To your point earlier, Caroline, when you do a search on ChatGPT-4, it consumes 10 times the amount of energy as doing a standard Google search. But why is it people are using ChatGPT-4? It's the funky thing, it's the new thing, and actually it does give you a different result. But again, it's important we understand, and the population understand the impact of taking and leveraging these tools. I see too often than not people building AI solutions, building LLMs today, and then looking for the problem to solve. And we have to turn that on its head. And what I can honestly say, I'm proud of what ADNOC's doing, exactly what Sarfaraz was saying, in ENGIE as well. They're focusing on the ideation and then looking at what are the solutions they should build. The way we're looking at it is we're making sure that we're building the solutions that will add the biggest positive impact to the organization, and obviously focusing on sustainability and decarbonization. So it's mindset change, it's education, obviously bringing in standards and certifications as well is important. I don't have a crystal ball, none of us do, but as you rightly pointed out there in terms of how technologies evolve in the data centers over that 10-year period, it substantiates what I was saying earlier. Technology will continue to evolve. So hopefully we won't have such a big challenge going forward in terms of the energy requirements. But I do think what's going to happen is, as we continue to educate around this roadmap, this journey of moving and leveraging AI as an enabler, as we move from model-based to generative AI where we are today, and then moving to agentic AI, and then moving out to AGI, things will continually evolve, and more opportunities will come to the forefront where we'll realize how we can reduce the energy requirements, reduce the carbon footprint. I'm not saying it's going to be a perfect world, but there's so much opportunity there, but we need to educate the mindset of those out there to come on board with the journey.
Great. So I'm going to try and summarize very quickly what we think we've heard. This is obviously a panel we should probably be having on a regular basis, given how much we want to cover. So you haven't quite answered whether nuclear physics is going to solve everything, which some people seem to be expecting. But nevertheless, I definitely
I can add a comment on that, if you may. I mean, in that discussion we had, a short while ago, one of the biggest challenges, again, is education. It's skill sets. So, if we're looking at growing the nuclear footprint, then again, there's actually a skills gap at the moment in terms of building of those reactors and so on. But again, remember that's a CO2 neutral approach. And exactly as Sarfaraz was saying, as we build up the focus on renewables, we need to solve a problem there, which is around energy storage. And again, hopefully there'll be some great new developments around battery systems for energy storage going forward as well. So that's really from the physics perspective. I expect to see great improvements in terms of battery systems and battery storage. And I do expect to see, a growing increase in the amount of nuclear power generation we'll be seeing globally.
I think what I like is at the end of this panel on AI, we've actually gone back to the need for humans to have the right skills, capabilities, and get up to speed, which actually is a relief, because I think we all want to feel human at the end of the day and feel there are lots of jobs for us in the future. It does sound like there is a lot of jobs to be done in this sector for innovation. I had a lot about the need for renewables and grid management as a source of AI. It's going to be important for flaring and for methane emissions and tracking and monitoring. It's going to be important for tracking the weather, something close to my home, given I'm a British person, we're obsessed by the weather. But it's also going to be important that all of us get up to speed and remain up to speed. And this is a train which is moving fast. So with that, it's a difficult summary for a very interesting and complicated discussion. Thank you very much, both of you, for your time today. These are important conversations, and we look forward to welcoming you at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week 2025, which is taking place from January the 12th to the 19th. ADSW 2025 will provide even more opportunities to engage on these topics, welcoming global leaders, innovators, which is exactly what we need here, and experts to advance sustainable solutions. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in Abu Dhabi.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Greatly appreciated. Thanks for joining all.